Good evening. Hello, everyone in my satisfied world. In case you don't know me, you should know me. I'm Felicity. I'm a satisfaction coach, yoga teacher, and reflexologist who's empowering people to live happier, healthier, and more satisfied lives that they don't need to escape from. And tell me if you're on live. Say hello. Give Restream permission to see your name as well, so I can see your name. So it's someone watching live, and feel free to join in the conversation as I talk it. I think on most platforms that I'm streaming on, I should be able to see your comments. So I'd love to know. And I'm always interested in if people think what I talk about is a load of rubbish as well. I think that's kind of interesting because it's the only way that we can really develop our thought is by being challenged. I guess a bit like a pearl in an oyster. You know, a pearl is just a piece of grit. It becomes a pearl because it's challenged, because it's rubbed as. Same with a diamond. A diamond is created through pressure. So I do find it interesting to know what people think about what I'm talking about and whether it makes sense or not. I wrote a blog this week, and quite often I'll come on here and I'll talk about the blog that I wrote. Just because it gives me, same sort of thing, it gives me a chance to have a discussion about it, to sometimes go in a bit more depth than I tend to write. And then it's quite amazing that I write as part of everything that I do. And then I get any enjoyment from it because I hated it when I was a student. I was always very concise as a writer. I'm not very good at writing long, flowery things. And I was often criticised at every level, from GCSE up to degree level. I was often criticised for not saying more, for not using more words, for not going into more depth. So yeah, it's quite amazing to me that I find myself writing and rather enjoying it. Maybe if I'd have found more enjoyment in it, I might have got better than a 2-2 in my degree. And I spent a lot of my time in my degree doing the practical units. I always chose to do the practical units, which I'm not actually very good at. I did an arts degree. I'm not particularly brilliant as an artist of any sort. And music, dance, I was doing mainly. But I probably would have been better if I'd have spent more, if I'd have opted for the essays. Hey ho, we live and learn, don't we? So enough waffle. I mean, what I'm here to talk about is that blog, what I wrote. So this blog was inspired by when I was on holiday and I was on a little model railway thing, little tiny thing with the family. And me and my mum were sat next to each other going backwards. And I was thinking, well, I quite like going backwards on a train. I find it really soothing to be going backwards. A lot of people find it really stressful. And talking to my brother-in-law, and he was like, oh, no, I have to be going forwards. I have to be able to see what's coming. So I kind of created this conversation in my head. And if you're watching live, pop in the comments. Tell me, do you prefer going forwards or backwards on a train? Or do you not care? I know when I put this up on when I put the blog up, some people say I'm just grateful to get a seat, to be honest. I guess there's a lot of situations where you might be going sideways as well. I think sideways is probably my least favourite, actually. I find sideways quite nausea inducing. Backwards I'm fine with, forwards I'm fine with. Although I do find forwards a bit more stressful. I find that, hello Mark, it's good to see you. Mark's a forwards kind of guy. So I find forwards a bit stressful because I find having stuff coming towards me at speed quite stressful. But I completely get the idea that people want to be able to anticipate what's coming towards them. So it got us to thinking, is there something in your personality? Now, obviously, there'll be a certain amount to do with your constitution, whether you feel sick and stuff like that as well. But is there something to do with, can we tell something about your personality by whether you, especially if you have a particularly strong feeling about going forwards or backwards? Because there must be this element of, if you're happy going backwards, you kind of like that. You're kind of happy to relax and let everything go past you, as it were, or let things happen. And you're actually, I mean, statistically, if you're in a train and you crash, it's safer if you're going backwards because the seat braces you. Obviously, if you're going forwards, you're more likely to just get thrown. Now, I quite like when I'm going backwards. It's interesting what Mark's saying, no point in looking back. I don't see it, for me, it's not a case of looking back. It's a case of, as things recede into the distance, I can notice them more. You know, when you're going forwards and you kind of like spy something, and then by the time you've had a chance to focus on it, it's gone and it's hard to see it. I quite like that I see it close up first and then I allow it to recede into the distance. So, you know, I think that it's just kind of like I say, the couple of people that I talk to, and this is just putting an idea in your head really, is whether you're happy to sit there and allow things to happen to you, and perhaps to allow things to just pass you by and to be able to see them as they go past and as they disappear, or whether you need that input of knowing what's coming towards you. Hi Tracy, it's good to see you. Happy to travel either way. Yeah, sometimes you just want to get somewhere, right? So it's got me into thinking about control, about the issue of control. Because at the end of the day, you can't, it doesn't matter which way you're facing, you are not in control of the train. You're never going to be in control of the train. There's nothing you can do in the event of any issues, you know. I think there is also a part of, some people say when, it's kind of a not so nice statistic, but drivers who fall asleep at the wheel are actually less likely to do any damage because they don't brace themselves, or certainly you're not going to get whiplash because you're not holding yourself. Whiplash happens because you're holding your neck stiff and then it moves in a weird direction. So if you're more relaxed, if your body's more relaxed, it's more able to cushion any impact. Whereas if you tense up because you know what's coming, you're more likely to damage the muscles at least. But you can't control the train. And it's interesting looking into the issue of control. You know, we as humans, we do have this natural instinct that we like to be in control. This isn't always a bad thing. You know, it can be quite motivating. You know, it's we want to have control of a situation, so we're motivated to create changes in that situation. In any situation where we accomplish something, we feel that sense of competence. If we're in control of something, we quite often feel a real sense of competence in it. But also people who have a really strong need for control and perhaps an overbearing need for control have a tendency to feel more disappointment, more anger, more frustration, because you can't control everything. And if you're someone who is always trying to control things that are out of your control, you're always going to be slightly disappointed that things don't go your way. You know, I've known people who, and in fact, I sometimes have to kind of stop myself or check myself, because you perhaps do something and you expect someone to react in a certain way and then they don't. And you're like, oh, you feel all disappointed. It's like, well, you can't control someone's reactions. You can't control someone else's actions and actions at all, let alone reactions. If someone just does, it's someone who, I think it was my 40th birthday, and then threw a load of that metal confetti stuff. I cannot stand that plasticky metal confetti stuff. I realise that saying this, especially to if there's any of my friends watching, is probably going to be a red rag to the bull. I suspect my next birthday I'm going to end up with it, with just like bathed in it. I can't stand the stuff. And someone threw it at me in my house, and I'm like, my first instinct is someone's going to clear this out. And obviously, they actually got quite upset because they're like, but I've done this with a lovely surprise for you. So it wasn't a lovely surprise, but there's no point in you getting upset because of my reaction. You can't control my reaction. And it's actually easy. People who really, really need control can get very easily hoodwinked by the illusion of control. We kind of see this in politics at the moment. So I'm going to try not to get too political. This is not specifically political, but the whole point of the take back control thing is that it's a bit illusionary. It's saying to you, general public, we're taking back control. All this general public want control. We've got it instilled in us that we really need to take control. So it's easier to sell to people who are really fired up. I must take back control. It's easier to pretend to them that they've got control when they haven't really. You're more easily led in that way if you've got that desperation to be in control. And this kind of plays into a lot of what I try and teach, really, and my whole system of how I not just teach, but try and approach life, which kind of ties into serenity prayer and knowing what you can change and what you can't, and knowing the difference. So knowing that difference, knowing what we can control and what we can't control, and accepting things that we can't control. And remember, accepting is not about just saying, oh, it's fine. It's just about saying it is. It is what it is. Can't change it. But I can perhaps change something else. Whether that's your mindset towards it or changing something to avoid that thing that really upsets you or triggers you that you can't change. I brought to mind, and I put this quote in my blog. Hello, Elaine. Elaine's a forwards person as well. I'm guessing most people are forwards people because we like to be in control of our own destiny, or we like to think that we are in control of our own destiny. And perhaps we like to see what's coming. Maybe it's partly to do with that as well. It's not necessarily about the control element, but it's also just about wanting to know what's coming up. So there's this passage in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is a Vedic text. I think it's Vedic. It's written in Sanskrit. It's kind of an ancient Indian text, anyway. And it's about this guy called Arjuna who has to go into battle. So it's part of a massive piece of work. But basically, it's not even two families, it's two sides of the same family. Gonna go into battle. Arjuna's on one side, like his dad's leading the army, so he has to go and fight. Now, on the other side, because it's part of his family, he's going to have to go and fight and potentially kill uncles, cousins, friends on the other side of this battle. So the book is all about this kind of battle of his mind, the battle in Arjuna's mind of, can I go ahead and put myself in this position where I'm killing family members? And he turns to Krishna for guidance. And I'm not going to go into kind of like the whole of it. That's the basic story, really. And then there's various lessons that are taught throughout this. And one of the things that Krishna says, and there's a lot within the Gita, which is about not feeling particularly drawn to pleasure, and particularly like you're trying to run away from pain. So Krishna says, that one is dear to me, who runs not after the pleasant or away from the painful, who grieves not, lusts not, but lets things come and go as they happen. So this is what Krishna's trying to teach us as well. We should, the things that especially the things that we can't change. I guess the upshot of this, the first time I read the Bhagavad Gita, I hated it. Because basically Krishna says, it doesn't matter whether you go and kill your uncles or not, someone else will go and kill them instead. Which to me, as a very kind of a pacifist who's not really down with all that war and stuff, I struggle with that quite a lot. But I had to read the text 3 or 4 times before I started to dig into a lot of the deeper messages. And one of the ones that really appeals to me is this: try to find this neutrality between pleasure and pain almost. And it's the same as, and I didn't write this down and I didn't bring it up, it's the Kipling poem. It's so, isn't it? One who can approach, I can't remember the line, I'm going to have to go and look it up. But he says exactly the same thing, you'll be a man, my son, that poem. When he talks about if you can approach hardship and pleasure with the same mindset or with the same open mindset. And that is kind of like a place where we can find a more soothing contentment. That doesn't mean we should always do that, And it doesn't mean not doing anything as well. One of the other messages in the Gita that Krishna puts forward is saying, I'm not saying, you still have to work. You still have to do stuff. You've still got a reason to be here. And that was Arjuna's reason to be there in that moment. So the only thing we can really control is ourselves. You cannot control other people, because they will always want to control, to have some self-control. So why do we find it often so difficult to control ourselves? I'm not going to babble on too much longer. I've been on 20 minutes already. So maybe we can think about, whenever we're thinking, I wish this would happen, I wish that happened. Whenever we're thinking, I wish all these things that I can't actually do anything about were different. Can we turn this inside into ourselves and think, what is the change that I can actually make? Be the change you want to see in the world. Remember that quote. The Gandhi quote. I think it's Gandhi. So you've got a little call to action. I think in my blurb at the top there, up there, over there, depends on how you're watching it, right? Or down there. One thing you can control is what you do every day. And there's a lot of very successful people will tell you that if you want to change anything, you have to change something every day. Or it's in the things you do every day. That's where change really occurs. And certainly it's where the quickest change will occur. So I've got a little freebie that you can sign up to. All about getting your routines down, getting a good daily routine, morning routine, evening routine. And some of the science about that. There's some free training there. There's a free download that you can sign up and grab yourself a copy of. And I am reopening the doors to the Satisfaction Revolution next week. I can't believe 3 months has gone by already. And we're already moving into a new season of the Satisfaction Revolution. So autumn is all about finding yourself. We're going to be looking into things like compassion. When I talk about finding ourselves, I talk about it in the context of the world as well. You know, you can be a yogi going and sitting in a cave and not let the rest of the world really be affecting you. And then you can just be yourself. But we're not. We are human beings in a Western world who are out and about, are communicating with other people, and who need to deal with the whole rest of the world. And I think a lot of finding yourself is about putting yourself in the context of the rest of the world. So we talk about compassion and we talk about connection as well. Connection with the world, connection with those that are close to us, connection with nature as well. And then we're going to move into, in November, self-care and a bit of self-identity as well. Those thorny issues which the culture warriors are liking to make a big fuss of at the moment. But can we somehow circumnavigate the politics behind it and really dig into ourselves? So there's my website. If you want to find out about the Satisfaction Revolution, doors are only going to be open for probably only a week or maybe 10 days. So if you want to get in on it, you're going to have to get in quick. But you can go and have a look on the website. It's got all the details about what it is exactly. It's a membership, and we do some yoga, and then we have a chat every week. And there's a Facebook group, and basically it's a lovely little thing that I run every week. So it'd be great to see some of you come and join me in there. Otherwise, go and get my freebie. Do free training. Go and grab it. And I think that's all I have to say this week. So I am your satisfaction coach. And together, we can learn to live that, build and create that satisfied life that you don't need to run away from. Have a fantastic week. And I'll see you next week, probably. Cheerio.